straightforward and simple. It's term limits. And we'll start with you, Doug. What are your views on term limits?
I'm all in favor of term limits. And if I went to Congress, I would certainly sponsor a constitutional amendment to allow for them. At the moment, I do not believe they're constitutional.
This mic doesn't like me. I have a different opinion. I think that it's up to the voters right now to send people home, that we need to be active, that we have to take our personal responsibility seriously in this country and stand up and say, we've had enough. When somebody is not representing us well, we send them home. Now, I was originally thinking about this a few years ago and thinking, wow, it would be really easy, just limit what happens. And then I thought twice about it. There's some unintended consequences. And you know what? We've seen a lot of those in Congress lately, haven't we? Don't read the bill. Let's vote on it to find out what's in it. Well, I just thought about those unintended consequences. Who would have more power in Washington if we forced our representatives home after a certain time? The unelected, unchecked Hill staffer. That group of people that will be down there forever feeding on the system. And when they have people who don't know the system come into Washington, they will have even more power. So for one reason alone, that's enough to tell me that I don't want to see term limits right now. What if we had another Ronald Reagan come in? What if we had another Winston Churchill, some great leader that came in and we automatically have to kick them out of office when they're doing a good job? I don't think it's the smartest way to go. Do we need to step up and find ways to get the incumbents out? You bet we do, but I don't think it's term limits.
Ronald Reagan had a term limit. He was only allowed, under the Constitution, 2 terms. The problem with Congress is that they can stay there for life. They build up huge war chests that prohibit people from competing with them. This country was designed to have citizen legislators who go to Washington, do their job, and then come home and go back to work. That's what we need. And the system as it is allows people too much power in order to keep themselves in office. And I would sponsor a constitutional amendment to add term limits to Congress.
Daria, you're up first here. What are your thoughts on cleaning up corrupt alliances between government and giant corporations, subsidies, prejudice statutes, mandates, lobbyists, unequal applied injustices, and the like? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes. I think you gave me quite a list there. You know, when anything gets out of control, it needs to be brought back to the center. And I think that's what's happened with everything in Washington these days, everything on your list there. What we need to do is to bring some sanity back to Washington. Just decent government, that hardworking people can come and say, I am proud to be an American and to contribute. When you have excesses in any area, you need to be careful. And I think that's what's happened here, where we're seeing that corporations have gone overboard in the financial sector, in the banking sector, and what happens? When something goes wrong, this administration's answer is to have the government take it over. I don't think having government taking over these programs is the answer. In the financial industry, when you look at banks, what percentage of our banks are owned today by the government? Too many. We need to find ways to allow companies to restructure, to not put the FDIC in charge of large bank or financial institutions when they're having problems, but we need to create a new bankruptcy code which will secure these companies in the sense that they will be able to fail or to restructure without risking the entire economy. And there are ways that we can do this. What's happening now is not working, and we need a change.
The question talked a bit about corporations having an unholy alliance of some sort with government. And one of the things that we need to remember is all of the sort of quasi-governmental corporations, your Fannie Mae, your Freddie Mac, things like that, which right there, that is it a corporation? Is it part of the government? Or is it a corporation that's supported by the government? So does it act like the government, or does it act like a corporation? Most people don't know. Most people in Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac don't know. Most people in the government don't know. What we need is we need the private sector to be private, the public sector to be public, and we need to be very, very careful about when we try to meld those together. Because when you start melding the government and corporations together, you get essentially fascism. And we want to stay as far away from that as possible. Now, obviously there's a lot of corruption, both in the private sector and the public sector. But when the private sector has corruption, we've got the public sector to crack down on it. Who cracks down on the corruption when it's in the public sector? Nobody. So what we need is a clean division. We need to get rid of corporations like Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, and we need to have sensible oversight of corporations. We need to enforce our antitrust laws so corporations do not get too big to fail. And we need to have a system of oversight in place for both the public sector and the private sector that work efficiently.
Terrorists are not civilian criminals. No two ways about it. This administration has it wrong. This type of activity is war by other means, and we have to go out there and try these people in military courts. We need to protect our society. This is not a case of somebody going down to the local pizza store and robbing somebody. These people are enemies of our state, and they need to be tried in a military court.
Foreign terrorists need to be tried in military courts. Citizens of the United States are tried in civilian courts.
I'll go first with you here. How do you feel about a bill that would require every representative that votes for a bill to sign a document that they've actually read that bill?
Well, I would be all for that, because what that would do almost instantly is shut down most of the federal government. There just isn't any way for normal people to read 3,000-page bills. I'm a lawyer, and getting through a 3,000-page bill that's been drafted by 150 different people over several months is nearly impossible. So when everybody says that we need to read the bills, absolutely. But what we need to do is we need to make sure that the bills aren't 3,000 pages to start with. Because nobody can read them, and nobody can understand them. Especially when no single person actually wrote them. So absolutely, and that hopefully would reduce the size and complexity of the bills and make bills specific to a specific purpose and not have a million different things thrown in by all these different interest groups.
I'm not an attorney, but I do read, and I will read the bill, or I will make a pledge, and I have already signed this pledge. I will not vote for anything that I have not read and understood.